Hello everyone, welcome back to Durbanites FPL Game Week 36 review, Game Week 37 preview. This is it, the last 2 weeks of the 2024-2025 season. It's all exciting. Let's get started as usual with the table. And right at the top, Mubs is still leading, prime position here, just less than 40 points ahead. Third place is about twice that away, so looking pretty settled up at the top four. But look at this, after a great Game Week 36, the champ is back in the top 5, fighting it out. 6 teams still battling so hard for those positions. Get into the top half of the table, get into a better position at the end of the league season. As you can see, some big movers there, but just 11 points between 5th and 8th. It is very, very tight indeed. Now let's look at what happened in the cup. As you can see, 3 seeded teams that had buys from Game Week 35 are now out. The Chiefs, Stranger Mings and Hassan all out. Dora the scorer making it through. Mangoose is in. The intended champ is in as well, and the champ are fighting it out. Some action-packed semifinals happening in Game Week 37 before the final in Game Week 38. Everything to play for. Let's look at what influenced it this week in terms of the players. Mo Salah still owned by 9 out of 10 teams, so he is very, very much the leading guy in the whole thing. Alexander Isak slipping a little bit. There are some rumors that he's nursing an injury and he's going to have to go in for some surgery at the end of the season. Might be impacting why he's being not selected. Jacob Murphy still holding on in there, as is Brian Mbeumo, being a very solid performer towards the end of the season. Looking at the differentiators last week, Eberechi Eze doing extremely well, 16 points, just one manager, and that is indeed Mobin scoring on him. Dan Byrne as well, owned by one manager, the Coconut Starin doing really, really well that week. Aaron Wan-Bissaka owned by a couple of managers, and Daniel was owned by 1/3 of the managers in the league. Now, looking at how that impacted the performances, really big defensive performances from a lot of the teams this week. So Stonewalls for myself, for the champ, for Zai, for Hassan, and then big 30+ points for Fatih and Azra as well. In terms of the misses, Fatih gets her second hot bench in the week this week. She's not alone. Didi jumps in there as well, and triple captaining Erling Haaland was a terrible decision. I would fire whoever gave me that advice. Zai only picking up 6 points in that week after a big blank for the Norwegian. Let's see how things work out from there. Now looking at how that impacted our best possible selection. Up at the back, Flecken picking up the number 1 jersey, Areola on the bench. Big back line as well. Keane, Byrne, Wan-Bissaka, Digne and Munoz coming big on the scene. Eze and Ilanga holding up the midfield there. Eze picking up the captaincy band with his 16. And up front, Watkins, Wood and Raul are the top 3 strikers. No place for Mo Salah on this team. No place for Omar Marmoush or any of the bigger players. Martinelli and Trossard both shining the bench this week, as is Ismail Assar. So with that team, you would have got 134 points and 162 with a bench boost. Total cost of 85.4. So very, very affordable team indeed. Looking at what that means now for the weeks going ahead. 2 weeks left, guys. It all comes down to this. Big matches here. Crystal Palace, Everton, Ipswich. Ipswich with 2 games against Leicester and West Ham going in there. On paper, still green, a chance to win, but their form says otherwise. Leicester with a chance to go out with a win as well against Ipswich. That is a bottom of the table match happening this week as well. But looking at it, you've got Nottingham Forest taking on West Ham as well. Some trouble at Forest as well, as you recall. We may have mentioned last week. Some trouble with the manager as well. But these are the picks for this week as well. Looking at the bottom end, Liverpool are the champs. They are definitely playing a rotated squad, but they have fixtures that they can beat. Brighton are not really firing on all cylinders, and Crystal Palace will for sure towards the end rest players for that FA Cup final coming up against Manchester City. City, on the other hand, they have quite a few injuries as well, but they've got Bournemouth and Fulham coming up. Winnable games if they want to stay in the European contention. And then you've got Aston Villa, who've got Spurs and Manchester United, 2 teams involved in the European leagues, and both sitting at 16th and 17th on the league table. Villa want European football. This is a great way to get it. Spurs are for sure going to play a slightly weakened team. They already are weakened by injuries, and we'll look at that later. And they'll want to preserve their first team players for that final. I think Same for Chelsea and Manchester United up there. Manchester United already having a few injuries that they have to contend with. Will definitely want to run and start some players, but will be very, very cautious about that. So chances for both those teams to pick up wins in the European chase, while Newcastle has to contend with Arsenal this week. So big fight there for second position. A win for Newcastle can make all the difference and embarrass Arsenal even more. Brighton, Bournemouth, and Manchester United, of course, tough games. Wouldn't look at bringing them through, and going into the last week as well, quite tricky fixtures. Now, looking at the selections as well, no issues with goalkeepers being out. So if you look at the defenders, Gabriel is still out for Arsenal. Lewis Hall is still out for Newcastle. Stones out for City. Tarkowski is still out for Everton, which means that we've given Michael Keane a call out based on his performance last week. Fabian Schär is still doubtful for Newcastle. Lisandro Martinez is out, and Dalot is highly doubtful for Manchester United. Again, one of those players that might be fully rested so that he can play a part in that final. Looking at our picks though, so Sals, Flecken, Pickford, and Sanchez for this week have the favorable fixtures, so a chance for you to actually score some points off them. Flecken has been super consistent recently. Looking at the defenders, Conor Bradley now becomes cemented in place as Trent Alexander-Arnold makes his exit. Quite a bit of stick coming from the Liverpool fans, so I don't think he's going to get a lot of games to run out and kind of gloat on that one there. There's quite a bit of animosity towards him. Kirkias, Guardiol, these are guys that we're considering as well because of their goal scoring ability, even through tough matches. Nico Williams is a good budget pick, and Milenkovic for his heading, as well opportunities for them to score. Rayan Ednouri at Wolves, very similar, not so much for the defensive, but for the offensive options, definitely want to look at. And Aaron Wan-Bissaka deserves his call out. He's doing extremely well for West Ham United, and definitely a player that's worth looking at. Daniel Munoz is another one that you want to look at for Crystal Palace, although you know that he might be rested a little bit again for the FA Cup final coming up. Michael Keane is our call out for Everton to replace Tarkowski, and then you've got Kukureya for Chelsea that's coming up this week against Manchester United. Now, looking at the midfield, quite a few injuries there. As you can see, Spurs is rattled with Madison, Kulusevski, and Bergvall all out. Aston Villa having troubles with their own Rashford and Tielemans out as well. And then Joe Linton is definitely out for Newcastle now. Dango Otara out for Bournemouth. Hudson-Odoi highly doubtful. He's not getting better this week. And then Trossard and Arsenal joining Merino as doubtful for Arsenal this week. So quite a bit of shake-up in that lineup. Looking at our picks, Mo Salah has been there consistently over the season, and I don't think we'll drop him now. Saka for Arsenal is an option based on the midfield choices that are available. Don't know how effective he will be, but he's a good pick for the last 2 game weeks. Elanga did well last week, and a chance for him to do the same this week as well. Brennan Johnson will be looking to carry a lot of the weight of that Tottenham midfield, but don't forget they will also want to save him for the final against United, so chances are that he will get limited minutes, so be aware of that. Dwight McNeil for Everton, I think, is a no-brainer. De Bruyne in for Manchester City. He's got 2 more games to try and do something fantastic with City, even trying to get into second spot for Europe, so let's see how that goes with him. And he's got a final that he will probably play in for the FA Cup. Brian Mbeumo has been Mr. Consistent recently, a couple of blanks along the way, but definitely someone you want to look at, and even a possible captaincy choice for this week. Morgan Rogers for Aston Villa, as well as Asensio. Now, Asensio usually doesn't get a lot of minutes, but again, if you look at Aston Villa's players that are out, with Jacob Ramsey also being doubtful, it's possible Asensio will get a full game or at least more than 60 minutes this week. Jared Bowen's doing well for West Ham United, not the season the Hammers thought they will have, but Bowen has come back to some consistency if you're looking for him. Eberechi Eze, I don't have to say more, he has probably been the single player that has turned the tide for Mobane up top, but we'll discuss more about that as the season goes up. And Ismail Assar, both of them are really talented midfielders for Crystal Palace and have been performing. And then you've got Cole Palmer, had a bit of a return last week, a little bit of, let's say, upswing in his game against the Manchester United side that will be weak already. Could he have the hat-trick that he had last season against them? Only time will tell. Now, looking at the forwards, again, injuries are playing a big role here. Havertz is making his way back, but is probably not in any shape to face Newcastle. Gabby Jesus is still out. The rest of them read like a hectic hospital list there. Trent Larson still doubtful, and Nicholas Jackson suspended after that mad elbow last week. Now, looking at the picks, Alexander Isak is definitely up top there. He's still the number one forward in the FPL this season. A slight asterisk against him. There are medical reports coming out saying that he is going in for some knee surgery at the end of the season. He has been struggling a bit to make those moves up and down the pitch. For those that have watched the games as well, you'll know that he's a bit sluggish to make those moves. But let's see how that works. You might look at a replacement for him in the last 2 weeks. Matthias Cunha is an option, blanking terribly last week, but might get the option against Crystal Palace this week. Beto from Everton is a good bet if you want to go that way. Chris Wood coming up with some goals last week and a chance for him as Nottingham Forest push for European qualification. Erling Haaland, if you have the money, he's got to come good. Guys, I know last week was a bit of a blank, but let's see how it goes. Omar Mahmoud, if you can't afford Haaland, but with Haaland coming back, Mahmoud will move more to the right and might have limited minutes as well, so just be aware of that. Johan Wissa came so close last week to scoring a few goals. Chances are he will get more chances in the last 2 weeks. If you're on a budget, he's a great pick. And then one of the biggest discussion points here, if you are not confident in Alexander Isak, does it make sense to put in Ollie Watkins? The two remaining games for Aston Villa are against the 16th and 17th place teams in the league, both of whom are competing in the Europa League and will field slides with reduced first teamers in it. It's a great chance for Aston Villa to get European qualification and for Ollie Watkins to really boost his numbers for this season. When you look at the managers as well, just a quick one, Guardiola for Manchester City, he is really in for the push, so an option for him here. Same for Nuno from Nottingham Forest, Moyes from Everton with a good game this week, Frank from Brentford because he's been so consistent getting those results, Pereira from Wolves, and Glasner from Crystal Palace. So these are the options that we're looking at for assistant managers. But that wraps up everything except for the chip strategy. 2 weeks left, guys. If you have more than these chips left, you are in trouble. You've only got a bench boost and a triple captain possibly remaining. If you've played your assistant manager in game week 36, time for you to end this video now because there's nothing else you can do for the other 2 weeks. If you still have your assistant manager and nothing else, play it now. You have nothing to lose except to get a few extra points as well. Don't forget that the first manager you transfer in is free in terms of it doesn't cost you a transfer, but you will have to have the budget for that. So you can look at some of our budget picks in order to get there into your team. So that's all we have for now, guys. There's just roughly 2 hours left for you to get your teams in place. Don't forget to check it out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment for us as well if you like what we're doing. Looking forward to bring you the update for this week and the final game week preparation before we crown our champion here in a very, very exciting season here on Durbanites FPL. So that's what we have for this week. So long for now.